Our next story is of a man you've most likely never heard of. His name is Jeremiah McAuley. And well, Jerry was a pretty bad guy. He was born in Ireland in 1839. His mom couldn't care for him, his dad wasn't around, and he threw so many dirt clods at his grandma while she prayed that she shipped him off to his relatives in New York. In New York, he would one day go on to start the first ever American rescue mission. But before he did that, this young, street-tough, small-time criminal became a river thief.
At the age of 13, he ran away from home and took up life on Water Street. New York City in the 1850s was a turbulent place for a young teenager, and criminals soon became his new family. There was minimal policing, and you could make more money being in a gang than you could having an honest job. Teenage Jerry McAuley continued his training as a minor criminal and soon became a river thief, stealing whatever he could carry away from boats and waterfront warehouses. He would later write, "In the daytime, we went up into the city and sold our ill-gotten goods, and with the proceeds dressed up, then spent our time, as long as the money lasted, in the vice dens of Water Street, practicing all sorts of wickedness." On the streets, the teen became highly skilled as a fighter and became disliked not only by civil citizens, but by many of those on the street as well. Then, at 19, McAuley was accused of highway robbery. Though he pleaded innocent, the judge found him guilty and he was sentenced to 15 years at Sing Sing prison, notorious for housing the infamous death chair that performed a majority of all the electric chair executions at the time.
About 5 years later, into his sentence, one Sunday morning, McAuley heard a sermon given by a reformed criminal, Orville Gardner, who had been allowed to preach there at the prison. Gardner, more well known as Awful Gardner, had earned quite the reputation in New York as a bare-knuckle boxer. He was notorious for being one of New York's most ruthless characters inside and outside of the ring. Gardner was convicted of assault and battery and sentenced to 6 months in Sing Sing prison. After his release, he attended the revival of 1857 in New York City. This year-long revival is said to have brought over 1 million new converts into the American church, one of them being Gardner himself. After his conversion, he dropped the nickname Awful Gardner and became a preacher. Gardner converted many, including his brother Hal the Horrible Gardner, another notorious boxer who himself became an evangelist. Orville would visit prisons and minister to its inmates about the life-changing power of the gospel.
McAuley listened to Gardner's tearful testimony of reformation that Sunday and was convinced of the sincerity of the former criminal. McAuley began to read the Bible, though he could not tell any immediate transformation. Then one day he heard an inner voice direct him, "Pray." There in his small cell, he had a spiritual experience that left him with a conviction that his sins were forgiven and that he had become new. He said, "I was happy, for Jesus was my friend. My sins were washed away and my heart was full of love."
Feeling the call to evangelize himself, he had some success in converting others. McAuley's reformation was noticed in the prison, and a pardon was issued. On March 8, 1864, at 26 years old, the reformed river thief who was shipped off to New York by his grandma, Jerry McAuley, was set free. He left prison determined to lead a sober and spiritual life. But in an unfortunate event, he had a chance encounter with a friend from the past who persuaded him to try the new and harmless lager beer of the time. As a former alcoholic, it sent him spiraling into relapse. McAuley wrote in his biography,
"I drank it, and thus began my downfall. The old appetite was awakened. From that time I drank every day. Satan got completely the upper hand of me."
In a short time, McAuley returned to his old life of wrongdoing. After the Civil War, he and a partner acquired a boat, and the old river thievery was resumed.
One night, a fire aboard a ferry provided the perfect opportunity for looting. However, upon seeing the struggling passengers who had jumped from the flaming boat into the water, McAuley started a rescue mission. Unable to get away from the small inner voice, he was reconsidering his life of crime. Then one night, while too drunk to assist his partner, McAuley fell into the water and, knowing he was about to drown, heard a voice tell him to call on God, which he did.
I seemed to be lifted right up to the surface of the water, and the boat was brought right to me so that I could get hold of it. It always seemed to me a miracle.
This near-death experience did not leave McAuley. All of these God moments he had experienced throughout the years came together when he met a missionary one cold night. After hearing McAuley tell him how he made his money, the missionary offered to sell his coat to give McAuley the money instead, so he wouldn't have to go out on the river to steal again. This missionary's love in action affected McAuley in a powerful way. After bringing him the money from the coat, the missionary prayed with him, and from that moment, McAuley was finally moved to change the trajectory of his life once and for all. That example the missionary set was one McAuley wanted to live out himself, to be the one to help those in need.
McAuley finally secured honest employment. Then one day, as he was sitting at his work, he said God gave him a vision of working for the Lord. In the vision, he had a house and people were coming in. There was a bath, and as they came in, he washed and cleansed them outside, and the Lord cleansed them inside. He began to share this dream with others, not quite sure how to turn it into a reality. McAuley had another chance encounter with a businessman named Alfrederick Hatch, a Wall Street banker who had once been president of the New York Stock Exchange. Hatch was moved by McAuley's vision to establish, as he called it, the world's first rescue mission, where the drunkard was more welcome than the sober man, the thief preferred to the honest man, the harlot favored over the beautiful woman. Hatch donated a house at 316 Water Street for McAuley's vision. The funds were raised to refurbish the property, and America's very first rescue mission was founded.
Though the mission wasn't always well accepted in the area at first, housing the homeless, drunkards, and prostitutes, McAuley and his wife Maria, who had also been rescued from a life of degradation, were devoted to ministering to all who came to their door. Because McAuley was a well-known thief and drunkard in the area, many who came across his path were shocked to see the miraculous transformation.
One night, a man who had known McAuley during his darker days happened into the mission. He was shocked when he saw McAuley teaching and asked those around what they were doing there with him. They told him that McAuley had been converted. The man responded that he would rather believe the devil himself would have converted before McAuley. McAuley's new life and work soon became well known throughout New York. Many found Jesus at the mission and were helped in practical ways to get back on their feet and get their life on track. In 1912, the original mission building was torn down and a new 4-story building was erected. The shelter changed its name to the McAuley Water Street Mission. 10 rooms were opened for men. In 1927, the John Markle Dormitory was dedicated. During the 1960s, McAuley Water Street Mission moved to a new location. In 1882, McAuley left the rescue mission in good hands and founded the Cremorne Mission on West 32nd Street, which he conducted until his death.
On September 18th, 1884, this month in history, the river thief turned rescue worker Jeremiah McAuley passed away. His funeral brought people from all over New York City. The mission hall was packed to the brim. The best of saints and the most sinful all were there. As his wife Maria wrote in his biography, he had been one of the worst of men, but became one of the best, simply through the blood of the Lord Jesus Christ. He loved others through the love that had been shown to him. In 2000, the rescue mission was renamed to its current name, the New York City Rescue Mission, and it continues to expand and reach more and more people every day.